so might as well just get started. Thanks everyone for joining this week's Securing Critical Projects Working Group meeting. Again, for those that just joined, we have meeting notes in the calendar invite as well as pasted in chat. I can paste that again in a second. Add yourself as an attendee and add any agenda items you wish to discuss today in this meeting. And as usual, we'll get started with new faces. So anybody that wishes to can introduce themselves that hasn't been for a while or is new here. So I'll go ahead and open it up. Anybody just go ahead and start talking.
So, hello. I'm Marco Benato. I'm from Red Hat Product Security team. I'm based on Brazil. I'm interested to help with this working group. So if you guys need any help from my side, I'm out to help.
Hello, everyone. I am Manu. I am from Brazil, so hi, Marco. I am a DevSecOps at Sky, based in the UK, and I learned about this project, and I was excited to learn more and maybe help you guys secure critical projects. So that's it.
Hi, I'm Peter. Everyone knows me as Fuzzy. And yeah, I'm coming from the Astro Tech team, just to come around and try and help the foundation. Randall dragged me in, so I'm here because of Randall, if anybody has anybody to blame. Thank you very much for having me. Did my mic come through?
Yeah, thanks. Welcome everyone. Glad to have you all here. All right. So just as a bit of housekeeping, I wanted to let everybody know about the APAC friendly time poll results. So by far the time that got the most votes in the first section was the 8 a.m. Sydney, 3 p.m. West Coast, 6 p.m. East Coast, and 11 p.m. London time. So I think that's a clear winner of when we're going to move forward, at least for now. And as you may know, after daylight savings time ends, Southern Hemisphere springs forward and Northern Hemisphere falls back. So the times change a lot in between the two. And to make it more, to get it to a different time that can get more people on the same meeting. The next time listed there was the winner in the poll, which is an hour earlier for Sydney, but it means that like East Coast is 3 p.m. and even Europe could come if they wanted to stay up a little late. So any questions there, discussions on the time? I think the next question is like, when do we do the first, when do we start alternating?
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you everyone who did the poll. I suppose as soon as we can get, I believe it's Jory to update the calendar, maybe we can for the next meeting if we want to start with the APAC friendly time, unless anyone opposes. I think we could probably get it set up by then.
All right. Don't hear anything. Sounds good. So we'll go ahead and Mir and I will work with Jory and the crew to get the times on the calendar. Just again, but pay attention to the, we'll send an announcement on the mailing list, but also pay attention to the OpenSSF calendar. It should be reflected there. Great. Let's move on. And see what we have here. Potential GitHub demo from Randall. Is that?
Yeah, I
potential?
threw that on there. I thought I'd give a little bit of both a little bit of context for some of the new folks and maybe a bit of a heads up to Randall. But we're talking about having a good process for capturing and curating a set of open source projects that we think are critical. We're calling it a set for the time being because there is no kind of prioritization or ordering of that. It's just, you know, these are projects that we think you guys should pay attention to. We did a iteration of this already, which I think went really well, and we came up with a candidate list of 100 projects. And now we're just basically trying to formalize that a little bit more and maybe doing it in a way that is, one, inclusive, and two, you know, really considers the wide range of expertise, both in the OpenSSF community and in the wider community, as well as all the research that comes out in the space. So we had talked about maybe doing that, at least the nomination kind of curation capturing part on GitHub, so that it's kind of like a public link that folks can access and kind of view the track changes to what we come up with. And Randall took the baton on potentially looking into seeing how that would work and maybe even creating a demo. So Randall, did you happen to make any progress on that?
Actually, I did, and I
Okay.
will show you what I have. I didn't get to make as much progress as I wanted, but I did package the criticality score, so now we can use it in PRs. So I'm still working on that, but I can demo that to you, so that way if you guys want to run, you can run and basically anything with the container. You just give it a URL and it'll give you the criticality score. So I have that, and then Fuzzy and I did work on putting together kind of the preliminary markdown, but then kind of ran into some questions because it really like the markdown will get messy really fast. Let me get my screens. Sorry, I have a lot of DEF CON stuff going on.
No worries, take your time, and sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But
And while you're loading that up, did you I saw you saw that screenshot that I sent you. Did that help at all, kind of give you an
I did.
idea
I
of-
actually recreated that screenshot this morning with Fuzzy and Markdown, so you could see what it would theoretically look like in
Okay.
GitHub flavored Markdown. Here, let
Very
me.
cool.
I'm just getting the criticality score thing set up. And then as far as here, so that's what I need. Sorry, guys. I don't want to show you something that's gonna break.
No worries at all. Well,
But anyway, so let me share my screen if I can.
okay.
So this is, call it desktop 2, I guess. So this is the markdown of what you sent me this morning or yesterday. And then if we were to preview it in a browser, this is what it ends up looking like, which actually looks really nice. And this could obviously be styled, but then the problem that Fuzzy and I were running into was that it really doesn't look very nice at all. So then we started thinking about if we just start checking things in YAML, and like, so, and then since each entry would be a YAML entry, and then that would just be you could just put that in the PR, and then we'd run the criticality score, which doesn't work. But yeah, I can send you guys the repo of where it's going to be. It doesn't work right now, but it'll work eventually. Where's Zoom? I don't know.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know how
Well,
to
that,
chat.
that looks nice though, I gotta say. I mean, it's a pretty clear table. I think that'll be pretty easy for folks to digest. Do we have any thoughts or Jeff, you have something?
Yeah, so the idea here is that we can make a PR with a package or project, and the action or the automation will fill in score, like criticality score.
As far as criticality score, yes, there are some other
Mhm.
tools that I've been made aware of that we can also use that I can also automate.
Mhm.
Here, let me do this. Fuzzy can chat, so I'll send this to Fuzzy because I have Discord
So
open.
has anybody, not just you, Randall, has anybody known, is there a way to pull like the download counts for, packages from known
Yes,
package
from
managers
NPM.
over API?
Yes, there is. Depending on the package
Okay.
source, but most of them do have the ability to get package counts. And that is something that
Okay.
we are working on packaging. Basically, in order for us to run it in GitHub Actions, we have to package it in a Docker container.
Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to share that that repo, and we can take a look at, how we can add stuff like that.
I
Yeah.
would say maybe the first step that everyone on this call could help us out with, if they know anything they want to add, like we can add download counts. We have to package it, but it is possible. Anything that would need to be in the pipeline, that would be good.
My questions
download-
were, sorry. My questions were more like, what kind of scope of information are we looking to really acquire when it comes to doing these surveys and reviews, or what we asking from people when it comes to the PRs? I was discussing with Randall if there was some way that we could actually get a predefined format for like the markdown file. I'm more proposing the line of if we have the metadata tied within the YAML within the front matter of the markdown. That way we could then parse that and put that into a UI, and then have that there sitting there as a site for people to actually go on and check out. And obviously the markdown would be, we can then take that and then put that into GitHub, and then we'll be able to preview that as well through the GitHub as well. So when you're checking out the repo, they can see it. They've got a site, they can see it. And it means that we could deliver a lot more of a user experience around, looking at these reports and having that, more accessible for people as well.
Because we're Fuzzy and I actually work is right here in Astro. So that's kind of why we put this in here as a joke. Because friends are like leader. So anyway, but it wouldn't be that hard for us to pull down a markdown file and parse it in Astro and make a site out of it. And like Fuzzy said, actually have a much better user experience than just GitHub preview.
Mhm.
And it would also help them with the maintainability of that table, because if we were to maintain the table in Markdown,
Right. Because we could go to something like this as opposed to having a file like this that basically can be broken if you just miss, like if we were to add another project, if you just miss one of these like separators, the markdown file will break. So we can avoid all that by just using this or like YAML files. But then the markdown preview support kind of gets a little spotty.
I mean, in GitHub, it will display the front matter in a table at the top of each file, each
Correct.
Markdown file. Sorry, I could be. I know Amir wants to say something.
No, I mean, it's an excellent point. I think the more that this can be automated, the more user friendly, I think the better. So you actually brought up a good point in that we were considering, at least for starters, again, if this can be augmented or automated into like a web page, like you said, a basic Google form to kind of capture some of this this basic information from folks. And if we standardize that, we decide, what is the most important information to capture. And the more consistent, the better. Then it'll be more readable, more usable. So I'm totally in agreement with you on this.
We can make, I think, all of these like form elements inside of GitHub. So they actually, like, when you actually make it, you have to fill it out. However, I think
Okay.
that we can make it work both ways. So that way, if somebody has it, you know, I don't know, they want to do it automated, they could just make a text file and commit it. We could do it both ways.
Okay.
I mean, you can even take it through JSON or YAML. You know, we could bring in multiple formats, file formats, in order for them to bring that in, and then we just collate it, stick it into Astro, and then out it goes.
So let me ask you a direct question, Amir.
Mhm.
So where in our priority list, so if we could make a site that would be way better in terms of accessibility, would it be better to go for like maintainability in the repo, even if that doesn't give us the nicest GitHub document preview? Because like what I'm saying is that this table will work on GitHub, because that's what I'm doing here is I'm rendering on GitHub's engine. So that is exactly what the document preview will show. But if we start putting in YAML files and whatnot, it's not going to work, because you need something to basically concatenate all those things together.
Mhm. Mm.
You see my point?
Yeah, I do see your point. Yeah, and it's a great question, and I think of other feedback we've heard throughout our calls, and I always go back to it has to be easy to use and it has to be user friendly. But like you said, I mean, if that comes at the cost of maintainability or automatability, I see some other folks have their hands raised. I'd love to get their thoughts. Looks like we have Jacques and Jeff.
I don't want to seem like I'm licking the cookie or anything. An expression which I really love, by the way.
Did you say licking the cookie?
Yeah, it's I first heard about it from a Googler who said he got it from a Microsoft person, so it's around.
Googling now.
Yeah, and the gist of it is, you know, I have in mind for getting to a later project called SIA, which would require essentially a database like this as part of it, or at least a table or two expressing, you know, what a project is and what are its features. So I'm more in favor of the YAML approach, because that's going to be easy to convert when the day comes. So that's my 2 cents.
For the record, I would be in favor of the YAML approach as well.
Yeah, so my idea is that we're going to want to put in, like check in lots of packages for review or for evaluation. So essentially, like if we put in YAML for a bunch of potential packages, I think it's fine to like not just see that in a preview, but actually commit that to a different directory that says like for evaluation. Then if all the automation runs and gets all the numbers and puts it all there as well, we can then see the current state of the repo in the evaluation directory, and then evaluate those packages, decide if we want to move them to preview is less important, is what I'm saying. I think we might want a workflow where we write everything in YAML, check it all in, then view it after the code is run. So then if we don't have to preview PRs or use the in GitHub previews, then yeah, I agree that YAML is better, and we don't have to use that markdown chart format.
Okay. And I just want to ask again, this isn't gonna in any way like exclude projects that aren't on GitHub or maybe not as I guess active on GitHub. Because we don't want to make it, you know, GitHub centric or, you know, one kind of platform centric. So I just want to make sure it's inclusive. Will we be able to adhere to that?
Yeah, yes, but this is where those other tools because I did have a few conversations outside of this with some people from Criticality Score, and that's not on the roadmap I don't think so, like immediately. At least the way I was made to understand it. So I was given some alternatives that do already work. Like I know SAP has one, but it's in Java, and So, but I think it would just be a matter of criticality score as a whole is mainly aimed towards GitHub. Like it requires a GitHub
Right.
authentication key.
Right. Yeah. Which is why, again, we don't want to like just lean on criticality score as, the determinant for what makes it onto our set. But so I think that's also why, yeah, like a selection criteria or like a reasoning.
So would it be
is
helpful
gonna be
to have
important.
some other tools from that are not OpenSSF tools that maybe are like reliable vendors, if you will, like Cloudflare or SAP, or I think Microsoft has one too. So that way that you like for us that are analyzing the packages, there's kind of a wide range of opinions.
Mhm. It's a good question. I just worry about maybe like expanding our scope too much, where this is, I think, if I'm I should go back to exactly what we wrote down, but this was meant to be kind of just like an engine for capturing some of this information, and really it's up to the person who's viewing this information, for example, like what we're looking at on the screen, to make informed decisions. So I want to kind of walk that fine line of, obviously doing doing due diligence, showing that, we are going through a very critical process to show you this set, but also at the same time not doing too much in that, we're furnishing an opinion for people is what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's perfectly fair and understandable. I think that at that point, though, that's also where we need to make that clear because, yeah, in those regards, some people might get the wrong impression because all of our tooling currently is somewhat more GitHub oriented.
Yeah. I'm going to defer back to, yeah, so here you go. In this document that is linked in our notes, and I think as long as you have access to the Google group, you can access it. But I think what's important is when we wrote that, where is it? Shoot, I just lost it. Reasoning for set. So we just say, to provide a best effort analysis of quantitative and qualitative research in the open source ecosystem and generate a curated living set of projects deemed critical to organizations and individuals. We say set and not list because we're not currently trying to order the entries inside the set. So I defer back to that, and I just want to make sure we are all in agreement that, that is kind of what I guess the objective of what we're trying to do is. And if that needs to be fine-tuned, I'm certainly open to it. But I think that, that kind of mantra will guide what we do. So it would be important to, make sure we're in agreement on that, and that reflects what we're trying to do. So do we have any thoughts on that? Fuzzy, I see your hand is up, so I'd love your thoughts as well.
Oh, sorry. I was wanting to speak to an earlier point there, but it's gone past now. I should have removed that, to be honest. Sorry. I really don't have much insight to this. I would rather, I think if you're looking at terms of terminology, set is quite nice. It plays into the whole place well. It's quite it works with the lingua franca of the computer terminology, and it speaks. Yeah, I like it. I like the concept of the project as well. I feel that it is really good in terms of for the JavaScript ecosystem. It will be something that a lot of projects, especially their sole maintainers, can leverage, and it gives them additional tools to help secure and standardize their projects, which is something that they've been wanting for a while. So yeah, I really do like this project in terms of what Randall's told me about.
Thank you. Do we have any other thoughts or feedback?
Yeah, just a simple one. I also mentioned this in the chat, but if one of the problems with Markdown is like, for example, breaking tables, there are Markdown linters that you can use, and I've actually used some of them in GitHub CI. So if you do break the Markdown, or if you put something that it's in the wrong format, it's going to tell you. So it's really easy to fix it back, and you can actually run it in a pre-commit thing, so you can actually know if you have break down the documentation before you actually do the push. And yeah, if things are going to move to YAML, I'm also it's also a nice format to have. But let's remember that Markdown is very easy to parse, not only by Google's Reader or Preview, whatever, but you can also use some other tools like Hugo uses. There's another very cool one in Python, but I just forgot the name. But yeah, you can also just grab the Markdown files and just copy them and build a real quote unquote website by using this type of tools like Google and other type of engines.
That's a good point. There's the GitHub super linter, but yeah, I agree with what Alvaro said as well.
That actually was the one thing I was wanting to mention. I know Jax has their hand up for a while. Sorry to interrupt, Jax. Thank you very much, my friend. I was just wanting to say that when it came to me and Randall were discussing, the tables Markdown, what kind of different approaches and what flavors would be best applicable. Having the Markdown file and the YAML in the front matter, having the two co-located together does give you the added scope that we can then add more rich information in terms of this comments becomes an actual Markdown page. That is a scope for the comments. We could add more resources, we could add more links, images, we could provide more rich information for the end user than just a small little snippet that would fit nicely into a table. A table, really speaking, is like after 50 or so entries, it just becomes an unburdenable nightmare to deal with. Especially with Markdown, you can't really order, etc. Whereas this way, you can structure the files of projects, the folder structure out, etc. And you can have a lot of more project structure, and it allows for maintainability as well, and version control. There's so much more benefits, I feel, when it comes down to that whole co-location between YAML and Markdown, my opinion. But yeah,
I will add to the pile-on. My concern is that it's relatively easy to accidentally leave a column out or get a column mixed up. You leave a column blank, but you left the wrong one blank, and now the information is in the wrong field, which doesn't really matter at a sort of a human level. Reading the table, you'll realize that it's off by one. But it will come to bite us on the backside when we import that data into a database.
It actually does break. It does break on GitHub on their process.
What I mean is if you leave a blank column to indicate that there's nothing there.
Oh, okay, yeah. And it's syntactically correct as well. Correct. Yeah.
Right. It can be syntactically correct, but you could have put things into the wrong column, so to speak. And that's my sort of concern, which YAML is more likely to be visible, at least if you require all of those fields to be present, even if they explicitly say that they're empty.
Now, in the comments, how do we feel about just making it plain text? In other words, there's no bold, because we theoretically could make the comments Markdown if we wanted to, but I don't know if we really want that feature, if it's just better to make it all the same. I don't know.
I think that just starts opening a can of worms.
I think so as well.
Because Markdown technically includes HTML.
Right.
Which more good times.
Right on. So what I could do with Fuzzy next time is I could put together a demo with the YAML, and that way you guys can see it side by side, because this is the Markdown example. And then I could put for next time a YAML example together, and I'll have a little bit more time to update the criticality score container and maybe demo that as well.
Awesome. And I think that is that's really applicable to what I thought we could talk about next, which Fuzzy mentioned, and we've all talked about it. Matt made a good point in the last meeting about kind of having a singular pipeline. So I did make a very, very simple ingestion engine form. It's just a Google form. But I thought if the work group is open to it, we could discuss as a group and maybe try and capture what we would say, is the most important basic information that we would want to capture. I mean, we do kind of have an idea here, but I figure we could discuss if there are things that would make this work better. So I did my best to make it public, but I have a feeling, yeah, no, it didn't work. Okay. I think this might work. So let me send this out to everybody. And if it doesn't, I can always screen share. But as of now, it's just asking 3 main questions, and I'm sure we'll have more. So again, open to discussion here. But obviously, what project do you nominate as critical? What is that criteria based on? So, some kind of reasoning or selection criteria. And then a link
Mia,
to, yeah.
We're still hitting the permissions page. Could you screen share so we can see it?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I always try and make this stuff like just publicly accessible, but
It
as long as
turns
you
out
have the link.
security is surprisingly hard.
Yeah, who would have thunk? Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, yeah, looks like okay. Can everyone see this now? Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, so again, the idea is that it's a very easy form that we can share and folks can nominate projects. I put a little intro here that was largely borrowed from other sources, and I kept it relatively simple in that, I kept a pretty basic definition of what critical means without getting into it too granularly. And then, yeah, it's basically 3 questions for the time being. And I know we can definitely include a couple more, maybe a couple, I don't know. I would say, what's a good amount of questions? 5 to 6. If there's too many, it'll be burdensome and people won't do it. So what is the group's thoughts on this? And
Yeah.
and keep in mind, for a template too, if we were to make this into a template, or if this could be, like you said, kind of converted into different data forms, like into YAML and things like that. Please keep that in mind too. I'm a little naive in that area, so any feedback or input is more than welcome.
Can you scroll down a little bit? Okay, that's it.
Yeah, so right now it's just 3 pretty basic questions. So one thing I had considered was maybe something like how would you categorize it? Like I go back to this from Julia's presentation and from Roads and Bridges. If we wanted to maybe ask, would you consider it one of these, 5 subcategories?
I like that.
One of these 5, you think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the less intimidating it looks to contribute. I think the easier it is to contribute. So we can split it up and stuff. I definitely think that's a good way to go.
Okay, and I think that could make it easier too because like I really liked your table, Randall, that you screen shared. Like if someone wanted to see, let's say, JavaScript ecosystem, or see all the projects on the list that are in TypeScript, in the TypeScript language, or this could be a good way to chop it up and let people analyze it to their own how they like.
I will say this, and I know Fuzz is going to hate me for suggesting this, but because if we do end up putting it into an Astro site, I know that we can integrate search so that you could search the lists.
You had to say that. You.
Okay, so
I think
and then
Jeff
another
has hand up real quick.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can't see the screen anymore. Yes,
It's
please,
all good,
Jeff.
it's all good.
Sure, I'll go first. Is trying to make this frictionless a really high goal for us? Are we do we have a worry that people aren't going to contribute? And secondly, like if we have more questions that are optional, does that add friction? So if we wanted to have like a drop-down list of package types, which would enable our automation to do things like look up the API, the package manager stuff. If we wanted to have a link to the package manager, as well as a package manager site, as well as the repo, if we wanted to have your question, yeah, about the how do you categorize it. I think these are all good. Like should we have a question for every column that we're going to have and mark them optional, just so that people that want to can fill that in, people don't have to. I don't know the answer, but I'll raise that.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about friction. I'm just worried about it being too long. Like if it seems like, oh, I have to fill out a bunch of questions, but if it's maybe 5 or 6 and maybe a couple of optional ones, because I really like the idea of maybe having an optional question of like, in case they're familiar with the contributor or maintainer base, like if you know that this is just a Libraska example, like, just a solo maintainer, or if it's like a a big group of maintainers or contributors, or it's supported by a organization or foundation. So I'd say a couple of additional questions, and yeah, probably having just one expected answer per question, just to make it simple, I think would make sense. But yeah, other folks have their hands up.
Hi, this is Munawar. So on that note, so for example, the second question, do you expect people to write sentences? If not, then what Jeff was mentioning, like having options like a drop-down list would make it easier for people. So across the board, like favor drop-down list where you don't want people to write arbitrary stuff. That will also make things harder to parse and then binify later. So if you create categories, then it's just easier down the line.
Okay. Yeah, good point. Yeah. I like the idea of a drop down of maybe some expected answers or common answers, and then maybe like a other, because I'm sure, someone's gonna have a reasoning that we won't have thought of. But I do agree with you completely. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I just had 2 questions really. It was something that was mentioned to Randall. It's like, what is the general scope of the information that you're looking to acquire, right, for this and to display? Because right now it's pretty loose and vaguey. It's like score, license, comments, kind of stuff. It's like, I feel if we want to actually provide information, let's try and make it as rich as possible. I do second the idea of it being, standardized questions and answers, and the less user response that they put in, the better. I mean, we could even automate in the back end, to go gather and fact find for us, and then gather that information for us and be able to display that, through the UI kind of thing. That's possible. But the other one was basically, what is the scope of questions that you're looking to acquire, and what is the sort of rich information that you're looking to gather? That were my 2 real questions that I've got around this.
Yeah, it's a good question. My initial gut answer is that we just want to capture basic information, because again, it's a set of nominations, and it's really kind of up to the interpreter, I think, to do a lot of the, I guess, analysis or insight. But I do agree that we want to make it a rich experience, and we want to make it in a way where folks feel like they're contributing to something and providing, the right information. And so yeah, that's my initial thoughts. Jacques, you have
let me just say that before we get off the subject, that there is some low-hanging fruit on this, where if we're going to be using criticality score, we will have those. It's just a matter of not if we record them or throw them away. Just saying.
Right.
I wanted to give some color that I think Fuzzy might have missed. I'm not sure about Randall. A while back, I proposed a very ambitious scheme of, ranking projects according to risk. There's a YouTube talk I'll dig up in a second. And the main problem with that, of course, is it's going to take a while to get that underway, right? It requires building a piece of software and doing a pilot study with a couple of people to do estimates and so on and so forth. Then we need to work out what projects go into the front of it. The gist of which is, ain't nobody got time for that, and we do need a list in the meantime. And so it's partly like a dumbbell shaped situation where we have one end where we want it to be quick and fast and dirty and just get like, this is good enough and we got it now, versus Jacques' beautiful boiled ocean, right? Which is at the other end, and that will have a lot more detail and be a lot more involved, but it will take time to get there. So that's kind of like the spread of the portfolio that I think that we're aiming for. And hopefully that gives more context as to why there's sort of like a reluctance to introduce too much to this part of the effort and trying to keep it as simple as possible. Even though that like loses this or that.
That's totally respectable. I totally appreciate that, Jax. That color really does help draw a lot of context to that. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. I'll dig up that talk real quick.
By the way, if you need help on the ocean, I have read your paper, so I liked it.
Which paper? What have I done now?
No, the one that you I think you circulated a while back on the package ranking.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And going back to the question of scope, I always go back to, what is our reasoning? And I don't know, I think it makes sense to lean on that because it's documented and we can update it if needed. But yeah, and I think that's why, we want to just help shine the light, basically, right? We don't want to necessarily do all of the analysis for the person. We just want to kind of help them with what to focus on, I would say. So
what would we think about integrating best practices into this, just like if they have a best practices badge or not?
That's flirting with the metrics effort. So they are working on, like, metrics.openssf.org is where it currently is at, but what you're describing is starting to look like that, where it's really more of like, I'm going to look up information about a project, and that's kind of what the metrics metrics.openssf.org and what that is developing into is supposed to be more of like something that provides insight. Or yeah. Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to add, like, I think the judging the existing security posture is in the frequency category, and we were trying to separate that from the criticality. So if we were like, even the question about the team versus foundation, like, that's good. I think that's good to capture. But I don't know if where we're using that in our judgment of what's critical or not.
I think it could be a good optional question, just because I know folks are interested in that.
It's good to capture, and it's probably good to capture, like, again, like, do they have CI best practice badge? What does their scorecard score? That kind of stuff. But I think when we go, like, if we're building this system that's going to just look up a bunch of things that can be looked up and throw it into a table, sure, like, let's look up more stuff that's easy to automate. But we need to be careful when we actually do the criticality judgments to separate those.
Right. And I think really making a judgment is not what we're trying to do. Would you agree?
I would. I don't know if that was for me or for Jeff.
I mean, it's kind of open, but I'm curious if anyone was thinking otherwise. Okay. But yeah, so I'm hoping this ingestion engine can be at least used to help guide maybe what our template might look like and how we might structure some of this information that we capture. So any feedback on that is very welcome. I'm gonna shut up for a minute.
One thing in the stuff that you sent me you had like that some of the like OS ITF that you guys audited. Is that like a link that maybe should be, or is there somewhere that you could get the audit report? Because I know you guys do publish some of the audit reports that you guys do.
Yeah. So the stuff in that screenshot, so what you saw was, yeah, the OSTIF OSTIF managed audit program. And the idea behind that was, yes, us as, you know, a organization that advocates for security and audits open source projects and, you know, has some insight into that field. We wanted to also serve as like a data source too. So we created our own, originally it was a list of 25 projects that we said, you know, these are projects we can audit today. We think they're, you know, important, you know, based on a number of different factors. And we basically created another data point that could be used, you know, I think for, you know, as a selection criteria or judging these projects, because, you know, we like to think of ourselves, obviously, you know, we're all about, our biggest focus is on transparency and publishing our work, which is why it's all available on our website. But I like the idea of us serving as like another source of insight for projects to audit. So we have a couple short lists that we would like to, you know, contribute as a data point for you know, helping select projects. Yeah.
Do we want to have any sort of like link or anything to any of that? Because I know we could also link back to criticality score in case somebody actually wanted to see it. Is that is that a feature that might be wanted or no?
You do bring up a good point, because like in our first iteration, which is this Google sheet, we do have a specific tab called selection criteria where we explain what the selection criteria mean and have like links to learn more. I do think at least some further information will be important, you know, for folks to do their own, to do their homework. But yeah, as long as again, it doesn't expand our scope too significantly. But yeah, I think it would be good to have, you know, if we have a selection criteria, explain what that selection criteria is, at least, you know, a little bit.
Or you could find the tools or something that you can run on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. Right on.
So you do have access to that spreadsheet?
I don't.
Okay.
You want me to send my email and you can add me?
Yeah. Are you in the Google group for the working group?
I think I am.
Okay, I'll share it with the whole, I thought it was already, but I'll share it with the whole Google group. But yeah, the selection criteria is where we tried to explain, you know, why we are, you know, why a selection criteria is what it is.
And if we're going to put a site together, might that not be a good idea for that to be like the front page? So therefore it's like real upfront about what our objectives are.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. There is also a tab in there called summary, which, yeah, we try to summarize all the information. And so yeah, in terms of a site, yeah, we should definitely talk about it. Going back to what Jacques was saying, you know, and I'm sorry to always be the annoying one about this, but I'd really love to have like an MVP or something that we could maybe show to the TAC in a couple of weeks when I give them an update of what we're doing, for example. So I always try and politely suggest that, you know, we also try and think about deliverables and things that we can actually show to demonstrate the great work we've been doing. So
I think by next week, Fuzzy and I can gronk that together for you guys with the YAML.
Awesome.
Yeah, we could definitely get that together. But when it comes to styling, I must say, I don't style.
Yeah, we're not going to worry about styling. We'll worry about that after.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just putting that out there like a disclaimer before I do anything.
Thank you, Fuzzy.
Not a problem, guys. It's a
Jeff,
pleasure.
you have your hand up?
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna just suggest organizationally, like we only meet every 2 weeks, but we can meet, like if we want to have people that are working on the technical site or the repo automation to meet, have a sub meeting. That's totally cool. Like we've got Slack. I mean, we could do it ad hoc. We've got Slack. You could be like, hey, I have something I want to, that I worked on. I want to bounce it off some people. Is anybody around to meet? Or we could get more formal, which maybe we could do, see how it goes. But right now on the working group, like the selection of critical projects is an official, I guess, SIG or something. But as far as the technical side of it, that could be another project that. So it's not just us saying, "Hey, Randall, Fuzzy, go work on this and come back." Like we have more people collaborate on that as well.
Absolutely, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in general, we could try and keep it asynchronous on Slack. And then if we wanted to, yeah, like you said, we could always set up an ad hoc meeting or stay, 30 minutes after our regularly scheduled meeting to work on something, if that works for everyone else.
Yep. Yeah, I'm always on Slack, guys, too, if you ever want to get in touch with me or like see what's up. But I'm pretty sure we'll get that to you guys by the next meeting, and then from there we can figure out. I think once we get the demo or the MVP together for our next meeting, I think then we can start cooking with gas.
Great, excellent. And just a heads up, so I am gonna drop a line to Jory to maybe do our next meeting for the new time zone, which will be alternating. Is that, just to confirm, is that right, Jeff? So we were just going to alternate, every other meeting would be the APAC friendly time. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we'll likely start with the next call. With the last couple meetings, I just wanted to quickly share with everybody the impact report that we just released. This is OSTIF, OSTIF's impact report that we did in partnership with CNCF. So basically, CNCF comes to us when they want a project audited to get to graduation status, and we handle it as we do, start to finish. And so we aggregated some of the results over the last, basically, end of last year up until July. So I invite everyone to take a look. If you have any questions on it, please let me know. It's the first impact report we've done, but I'm hoping it demonstrates, the kind of work that we're capable of producing. And yeah, as always, feedback is welcome on that. With that, we have 3 more minutes. So I would love to open the floor to anyone who has any thought-provoking closers or anything they'd like to send us home with. And again, I just want to thank everybody, and thank Jeff for facilitating, and thank you all for participating. So yes, thank you so much. Would anyone like to take us home?
Yeah, this is Jay. I'm so sorry. I'm just
Hey,
jumping
Jay.
on it. They didn't raise my hand. So you mentioned in a couple of weeks you'll be talking to the TAC, giving a report of some sort. Any thoughts to and I'm willing to help with this too. Getting the charter squared away prior to that.
That's a great question, Jay. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly where. I thought that kind of got the TAC kind of deprioritized that, but maybe I'm wrong.
No. So I'll tell you
Okay.
This is coming from some inside conversations as they go through their processes of getting things together, governance wise. There's about to become a great importance on making sure the charter and scope are squared away for all of the working groups. So I want to make, this is a great working group, and Mary and Jeff, you guys are doing some outstanding work, and I get a chance to see all that stuff. Just want to make sure that when you go up to report to the TAC, everything is dressed so there are no hiccups in case of funding is needed, etc.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Jay, and I do really appreciate you bringing that up. I always see it as something like I know we need to do. So I do think you're right that we should try and knock that out. I don't know if we'll be
Hey,
able
look,
to.
I'll make it a to do for me. And what I'll do is I'll put something together, send it out to the both of you to dot the I's and cross the T's or upload as you see fit. I don't mind doing that at all.
Okay.
Just to help out and push us in the right direction.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah, that'd be very
fantastic.
Yeah,
yeah,
and what I recall is that essentially like we have like our work group's mission. It's kind of written there in the README. We kind of have the idea of like the roles. We've been working on like the different projects and who's leading that, who's working on that. So whenever we get like the right template or something to shove that information into, we can do that. So yeah, if you know of any insider stuff from the tech that's coming down, that's super helpful. We can get our mission and stuff plugged into that and adopt it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have a charter template to both of you, and what I'll do is I'll get something together, and I guess we'll do it over Slack, right? I'll get something together and send it out to the both of you, and then just upload it. We can work on it all together, right? Work on it, make it open and all that, and then vote on it. I guess you had to vote on it, right? Vote on it, adopt it, and all that. But that's a quick fix, right? You could do that over Slack or over email, I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Our update to TAC is on the 23rd of August. So that gives us a little over a week. So I'm happy to help and how I can to get that done.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Jay.
You got it.
All right. And with that, we are at time. So time certainly goes by fast with the great discussions. Thank you all so much again, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Peace and love, guys. Thank you for having me.